Within 90 days of not guilty. So I would not be able to continue that date unless you waive your right to speedy trial. If something comes up that you couldn't make the November date.
The November date works for me.
Okay, I just want to make clear the November date's pretty absolute.
I wasn't sure if you were suggesting October. Yep.
Our first experience with it would have been nice if someone in the legislature asked somebody who administers courts about that before they pass the law. The legislature often doesn't ask people about things before they pass the law. Anyhow, all right. If you want discovery, though, I suspect there's not much other than the notes on the back of the ticket. You can talk to my court clerk about getting a copy of that. And if there's any pretrial motions or you're getting an attorney, when he enters an appearance, the prosecutor would talk to whoever that is. Any questions?
Your Honor.
All right, we'll see you in November.
Sure.
Your Honor, I would just say that her husband here kind of was already here negotiating on her behalf. He's her attorney as well.
Okay.
I was supposed to start the trial in Denver on Monday and in a 3-week medical malpractice trial, and I settled it, and therefore.
And you were bored and came to Frisco.
This is more fun.
I used to do med mal when I practiced in the city. So what kind of case? Orthopedic, birth trauma?
This was a surgery. A patient bled to death after surgery, and it was against the surgery center for a premature discharge.
Okay.
And it was to make it interesting. It was the artist who created the big blue bear at this convention.
Oh, really? That's terrible.
He was, yeah. What's terrible is he was having liposuction.
Yes. Yeah.
And which is obviously a very dumb thing to do. And
Yeah, there's too many unfortunate things with elective surgery because I think people get lax about it. It's like Joan Rivers and her vocal cords.
okay.
And there's a long list. So, well, I'm glad you settled. So, all right, we'll see you all in November.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what's your name, sir?
Oh, John Lingle.
He is asking about the substance abuse class.
It's online with, it's noted as being NCTI. Though it could be IASAE.
But we have level 1, level 2, and another level.
It says it's called CIMA now. It's CIMA. It says the NCTI of Colorado is now CIMA, remote education.
No, Your Honor, I tacked the class on because there was an open container in the vehicle.
So level 1 is fine. Okay. Back to docket. Judah Stover.
Yes, Your Honor.
Alleged to have violated model traffic code section 1101, paragraph 1, speeding 10 to 19 miles an hour over the posted limit. Do you understand the nature of the charge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that
Maximum penalty is 4 points on your driving record and a fine of up to $2,650, though the scheduled fine is much less. You understand the possible penalty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you get a chance to read and review your legal rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions about those legal rights?
That's right.
Do you feel you understand them?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know what a trial is?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you under the, no, that's not yet. Are you under the influence of anything that affects your ability to make a decision?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. You understand you have a right to hire an attorney?
Yes, sir.
I have paper that says you wish to enter into a plea bargain to plead to a 2-point defective vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand by doing that, you're giving up all the rights listed on the right sheet, which means there'll be no trial, there'll be no witnesses. The prosecutor won't have to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You are giving up your presumption of innocence and right to an attorney. Did anybody threaten you, force you, coerce you, or otherwise make you plead guilty? Anybody promise you anything that's not been stated in court to get you to plead guilty? Is this your free and voluntary plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now that we've covered all that, how do you plead to 2-point defective vehicle?
Guilty.
Court accepts your plea, can be freely, voluntarily, and knowingly made. You're entitled to make a statement and welcome to make a statement, but not required to say anything further. Is there anything you'd like to tell me?
That's it. Thank you for your time.
So what I'm showing for your driving record is in May of last year, a speeding in Jackson County with reduced points. And then 3 tickets in 2020, in January, February, and July. So
Yes, sir. I've been slowing down since then.
okay, well, at least it looks like you've slowed down from 2020. I'm on the border of when I make people take driving school classes. Do I need to worry about that?
No, sir.
Okay, I know what I'll do instead. What I will do is I will impose a $200 fine. However, I will suspend $120 of it on condition you have no tickets in the next year.
Yes, Your Honor. Sounds great.
And that gets you down to half, approximately half of what the ticket was, but then you have court costs of 30 and surcharge of 25. So that your total is 135 today, but you are liable for that other 120 if you check your record and find that you messed up again. A little motivation.
I appreciate your grace, sir.
All right, please see my court clerk. And then the last case I have, I understand, was handled by phone, but we're just putting on the record. This is Don Adam Kirby Burkett of Boulder. And I understand he wants to enter a plea of not guilty. Can you confirm this?
Yes, Your Honor. I spoke to the defendant over the telephone approximately 2 hours ago. He's in California right now. His mother is having surgery and he's tending to her. He originally wanted to plea by mail, but due to his driving history, I was unable to offer him a plea. So he would like to plead not guilty and go to trial. I could not advise him at that time if he was able to plead guilty or not guilty, or plead not guilty by mail. So I told him that I would let him know after this court appearance.
I'll enter the plea of not guilty conditioned on him getting a signed advisement of rights form that he's been fully advised. Though if he's setting it for trial, he's exercising those rights. And we'll set this for trial November 15th at 5:30.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That's all the files I have. Does that conclude our business?
Your Honor, I believe we have a bench trial
Oh, that's right.
for Mr. Rahul Saha, ticket
Yes.
5585.
This file was just out of my reach here. Okay. Are we ready to proceed or do we need a short break?
I'm good to go, Your Honor.
Okay. And I assume, sir, you're Mr. Saha.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Welcome. Good evening.
Howard.
Good. Sir, I do have You've been provided our written trial rights and procedure and trial procedure and order signed about how things are conducted in a trial. Do you have any questions about that?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Do you feel you're prepared to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any opening statement for the people?
Your Honor, I was speaking with the officer testifying shortly.
He communicated to me this morning that the citation required amendment. So I was hoping to get that on the written record or on the oral record. The fine should have been $75 rather than $100. So with the surcharge, the total to be paid should reflect $100 on the citation, not $125.
I assume there's no objection to that amendment to the paperwork.
I am pleading not guilty on this.
Right.
Yes,
We're just cleaning up some paperwork.
Yes,
You're
I understand.
showing a lower fine on scheduled fine. You have any objection to that?
No.
Okay, very good. All right. Then are we ready to proceed?
Apart from the court taking notice of the text of MTC 7033, which I will spare the court recitation of, we're good to go, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Saha, you're entitled to make an opening statement, as you indicated in the outline. Opening statements are an outline of what the case may be, usually designed for longer cases than traffic cases, but you're welcome to make one, but it's not evidence. The only evidence is sworn testimony. Is there a statement you'd like to make at this time?
yes, Your Honor.
See,
I entered into I entered Frisco under adverse driving conditions, and it had recently started raining and sleeting. This prompted me to search for a auto shop, and so as I turned in, I continued at 20 miles an hour to the intersection between Creekside and Main Street. The vehicle in front of me passed through the intersection, and I stopped at the walkway next to the stop sign. I saw the roadside parking adjacent to the West Main property, and looking to my left, I decided to proceed through the stop sign at the intersection and turn into the parking spot. This is when I noticed that the officer had indicated he was pulling me over for the traffic violation of 703. Now, in no way did I intend to violate the traffic code or disrespect the duty of the officer. It is in this capacity I feel that I did not intentionally offend the peace and dignity of the people of Frisco, Colorado. I appear in front of the court to request pardon for the unfortunate circumstances of that alleged infraction. This concludes my statement.
okay, please be seated.
Your Honor, the people call Officer Charles Freeman. Your Honor, we don't have a witness.
Normally there's a chair up here. Officer Freeman, just have a seat on one of the end chairs there. After I swear you in. Do you solemnly swear your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? Please proceed.
You can also sit up. Could you please state your name and occupation for the record?
Yes, Officer Charles Freeman with Frisco Police Department,
And how long have you been a police officer?
approximately 10 months.
And have all those 10 months been with the Frisco Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And were you employed by the Frisco PD as a police officer on March 13th, 2023?
Yes, I was.
What shift did you work on that day, if you recall?
I worked the day shift.
So were you on duty at 9:15 in the morning that day?
Yes, sir, I was.
And do you remember what sorts of duties you were performing that day?
Mixture of duties, from traffic control to responding to emergency and non-emergency calls. Yes,
And as part of traffic control, did that include issuing traffic citations?
yes, sir, it did.
Do you recall issuing any traffic citations on March 13th at Creekside and Main Street?
I do.
And have you received any training relating to traffic citations for running a stop sign?
Yes, sir, I have.
Could you describe some of that training for the court, please?
Absolutely. While in our patrol training, during the first few months of the initial hiring on to Frisco Police Department, we go through multiple styles of traffic control. That includes stop sign violations.
And what do you look for to determine whether a stop sign violation has occurred?
A full cessation of forward movement when coming to the stop sign.
And when you say full cessation, what do you mean by that exactly?
A complete stop.
Okay. So for someone that's driven a car before, when the car lurches forward a bit and then reacts to that stop, is that correct?
Correct. Comes to a complete stop before continuing on.
Your Honor, I have what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 1. Let the record show. Showing a copy to the defendant. May I approach the witness?
You may.
Officer Freeman, do you recognize this document?
I do.
And how do you recognize this document?
I took that picture.
And do you recall when you took this picture?
I don't recall the exact date.
But was it following the date of the infraction to be alleged here today?
After the infraction, correct?
But would you say that this picture is a true and accurate depiction of the layout of the intersection as it appeared on March 13th, 2023?
Yes, it is.
What would you say, if there were any differences in this picture, what would you say those differences are?
From the exact date, weather.
And please describe the weather for the court.
To clarify, on this date or the previous date?
For the previous date, for March 13th.
Yes, for March 13th, there was light snow. Otherwise, that's it.
True and accurate
Yes.
depiction of the intersection. Your Honor, I ask what's been previously marked as Exhibit 1 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
Now, Officer Freeman, I'm gonna stay on this exhibit for a second. What is this exhibit showing us?
This exhibit is showing eastbound on Main Street coming to the Creekside stop sign.
And I see a stop sign on the right-hand side of this exhibit. What's the significance of that stop sign?
That is the stop sign you would observe, while traveling eastbound on Main Street, coming to the intersection of Creekside and Main.
And is this the stop sign that prompted you to issue the citation on March 13th, 2023?
Yes, sir, it is.
Now, Your Honor, I have what's been previously marked as Exhibit 2. Let the record show. Show the defendant. May I approach Officer Freeman? Now, Officer Freeman, do you recognize this document?
I do.
And how do you recognize this document?
I took that picture.
And did you take this picture at the same time that you took the picture that has now been admitted as Exhibit 1?
I did.
And what is this picture showing us?
This is showing the approximate location of where my patrol vehicle is parked while monitoring traffic at Creekside and Main.
So the vehicle that we see in this exhibit is the approximate location of your vehicle.
Yes, sir, it is.
And were you in this position on March 13th, 2023?
I was.
And did you observe the defendant running the stop sign, which is depicted in Exhibit 1 from this position?
I did.
Your Honor, I ask what's been marked as People's Exhibit 2 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
if memory serves correctly, his vehicle was in the driving lane. Traffic lane. And my vehicle was approaching the stop sign. This is exhibit 2. It was approaching the stop sign as a corresponding traffic vehicle. So he wasn't located in this shoulder. You may proceed.
Response?
Your Honor, we've heard testimony from the officer that this is a reflection of his vehicle on that day.
Sure, and this may be a fine point too, sir, but what you're objecting to is the officer's testimony that that's where he was. The issue about the exhibit is whether the exhibit is true and accurate. And based on the testimony, I'm going to find that it's true and accurate and admit it into evidence. And then you can, on cross-examination, bring up your point and discuss that with the officer. But as far as the picture being accurate, it is. So I'm admitting exhibit 2.
Now, Officer Freeman, looking at exhibit 2, a little bit past the police vehicle in it, you can see what looks to be a black pickup truck approaching the intersection. Is that the same approach that the defendant made prior to your issuance of the citation?
It is.
And using exhibit 2, could you describe the defendant's actions as he moved into the intersection or attempted to come to a complete stop?
Absolutely. I observed from the location, I was seated monitoring traffic in my patrol vehicle. The defendant come through the stop sign, observed me parked in this location, and come to a complete stop in the center of the intersection.
So would you say that, is there anything in the picture as it appears in exhibit 2 that gives a better approximation of where the defendant stopped in the intersection?
I would say slightly to the left of the roadwork sign on exhibit 2.
And to your knowledge, is there any reason why the defendant could not have effectuated a complete stop?
There is not.
And do you recall the make and model of the vehicle that you pulled over on March 13th?
It was a white Lexus sedan.
And as part of your training, do you factor in the white lines that appear in exhibit 1 as any sort of indicator of when to come to a stop?
Typically, white lines are placed there so motorists have an idea of where to come to a full cessation of forward movement, and that would be where the stop sign.
To the
Yes.
best of your memory, do you recall if the white lines were visible that day?
They were not completely visible.
Could you see any of the white lines?
You could.
Now, based on your training and experience, did the defendant fail to come to a complete stop at the stop sign?
He did.
And how are you sure that you pulled over the vehicle that failed to stop?
I observed the vehicle pass and disregard the stop sign and come to a complete stop in the middle of the intersection.
And you never lost sight of the vehicle?
Never lost sight.
And did you see the driver of the vehicle that you pulled over on March 13th?
I did.
And is the driver of the vehicle in the courtroom today?
He is.
Could you please ID that person for the record?
The gentleman sitting to my left here.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that Officer Freeman identified the defendant.
Excuse me, shall.
When you contacted the defendant, did he make any statements to you?
He stated that he was unable to stop due to road conditions.
And do you recall what you responded to him with?
Yes. As I initiated a traffic stop on exhibit 1, there are parking spots to the left. The defendant pulled into those parking spots, and I was able to show him from his window that vehicles were able to stop and there was not ice at that Creekside and Main stop sign.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like the court to know today?
Not at the moment. Thank you.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, officer.
Okay, Mr. Saha, this is your chance for cross-examination, that is to ask the officer questions. Please proceed.
See you again, Officer Freeman. Now, on the day of the incident, what had occurred to me was that once I had stopped, my complete stop ended before the stop sign. And due to the crossway, the walkway here, I then proceeded through the intersection. This is when I recognized that your vehicle was pulling me over because your lights went on. So when you say that you saw me stop momentarily in the middle of the intersection, I can put this question forward. Do you realize that the presence of your vehicle under the authority of the law required my attention and paused my progress through the intersection? In which case, I then proceeded into this left turn into the parking spot. This is the question I'm putting forward to you.
That being said, I understand that my vehicle was off to the left in sight. I do believe visual speed estimate that I saw you go through the stop sign at approximately 15 miles per hour, observe my vehicle, then come to a complete stop. While observing my vehicle, at that time, I then initiated my overhead lights for a traffic stop, pulling behind you, and you pulled into the left spots there.
Now, this is the point that I have disagreement with.
To ask questions of the witness.
I can put this question forward that the presence of your vehicle and the lights on were what regarded me to pull over into this parking spot. Do you understand that you affected my progress through the intersection? I did not stop for any other reason.
Your Honor, I don't know Officer Freeman can.
I don't speak to.
I don't think I understand your question, sir, and I don't know if the officer does either. So please try to rephrase that. Try that again.
Do you realize that the presence of your vehicle and the traffic lights are what caused me to pause momentarily in the middle of the intersection?
I don't entirely understand. My vehicle being parked away from that stop sign on that portion off the road shouldn't have any alarm to driving motorists and should not initiate a complete stop for anyone who observes my vehicle. My lights were not initiated until I saw the violation, and then I turn on my lights to initiate a traffic stop.
That is all, Your Honor.
Okay, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Officer, you may step down. Any other witnesses for the people?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Irsad, the people have concluded their case. At this point, you have options or choices. One is the people have the burden of proof, and they must prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and present sufficient evidence to overcome the presumption of innocence. You are entitled to simply not present any evidence. You're not required to present any evidence, and you may simply argue they failed to do so. On the other hand, you may also call witnesses if you have any, but you're not required to. And you may also testify if you choose to, but you're not required to. If you choose to testify, I'm required by law to give you a supplemental warning. We call it, named after a particular case in Colorado called Curtis warning. And that warning is you understand that you have an absolute right to not testify. That if you choose to testify, you get treated as any other witness. That once you waive your right against self-incrimination, once you waive the right to not testify, that you must answer all properly, put questions under the rules of evidence. So, for example, if the first few questions are your name, your address, your age, and you're fine with those, but then you're asked something that you don't like, you would have to continue to answer questions so long as they were proper under the rules of evidence. And you're also subject to the same rules of what lawyers call impeachment. That is, if you have prior similar offenses, you could be questioned about those as a matter of addressing your credibility about testimony in this case. So that is the Curtis warning in a nutshell. So let me back up. First of all, do you wish to present any evidence?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you wish, you don't have any witnesses you wish to present, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you wish to testify?
Yes, I would like to testify.
Okay. And you understand you're giving up your Fifth Amendment right to not testify?
Yes.
And you understand the prosecutor still has the burden of to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, sir.
Please come up to the witness chair. We don't make you ask yourself questions. That would be rather silly. You get to make a statement, and then you would be subject to cross-examination. I'm not sure if I made that clear before, but I did indicate you're treated like any other witness and subject to cross-examination questions by the prosecutor.
Yes, Your Honor.
You still wish to testify?
Yes, sir.
All right, please proceed to make your statement.
Now, as I mentioned before, I approached the stop sign at Creekside in Maine under adverse weather conditions. There was snow on the ground. I stopped at the walkway at a full stop, and then I proceeded through the intersection where Officer Friedman was patrolling on the traffic lane. As I was moving through the intersection, I noticed his lights turn on, indicating that he was pulling me over for a traffic violation. This is when I proceeded forward and pulled into the parking spot to the left. Now, I asked if it was excusable under these conditions. He said no. I asked if there was a local store that I could go to purchase some auto parts, and he pointed me in the direction of that would be down Main Street. And this concluded our interaction. So this concludes my testimony.
Okay, cross-examination.
Mr. Sahat, you said that you asked Officer Freeman if this was excusable under these conditions. If you did not run the stop sign and came to a complete stop, why would he need to excuse you of anything?
Regarding his violation, his violation under traffic. So rather than accusing me of a traffic violation, this is what I was asking him about. Not that I was actually running the stop sign at all, but that he had pulled me over.
But
I wasn't asking if it was excusable to run the stop sign. I was asking if it was excusable on his part.
you said excusable under these conditions. What were the conditions that you were referring to?
Just the fact that there was snow on the ground and that this entire that I was new to the area. I had explained to him those things because I was just passing through, and I needed to pull over into the Frisco town for this particular reason,
And
to get off the highway.
why would the snow on the ground have any impact if you claim that you came to a complete stop?
Again, when I was speaking to him, I wasn't referring to any traffic violation. I was referring to the weather conditions because I had, as I mentioned to him, I was driving off the highway and the snow had caused me to need to pull over somewhere. So I pulled into town. I was simply passing through, and this was the most convenient place for me to pass through.
So you wanted the citation excused because you were just passing through, not because you didn't commit the violation.
Incorrect. I was referring to his actions, not the actual violation, not admitting to any violation of traffic
And what
code
actions
703.
of Officer Freeman are you referring to then?
Proceeding through the stop sign after completing a full stop, the officer indicated that I had made an infraction. This happened when I was momentarily passing through the intersection after the fact. So I had already passed through the stop sign. I was making a left turn in across from West Main, and that's when his lights went on, and he indicated that I was violating a traffic code 703.
Well, you weren't making a turn, correct? Because earlier tonight, you said that once you saw Officer Freeman, you immediately stopped in the middle of the intersection.
Incorrect. I did not say that. He said that.
I mean, I believe the record would reflect that you said that you saw Officer Freeman, and upon seeing Officer Freeman, you came to a complete stop in the intersection.
No, I momentarily paused in the intersection because I was trying to make a left turn. So I was moving forward. And that's what he's referring to when I paused momentarily in this intersection because his lights went on, and it struck me as an unusual circumstance. It got my attention. My vehicle slowed, and then I made a left turn into one of the parking spots, which was what I was initially going to do after proceeding through the stop sign. So the only reason I did that was because I needed a place to park so I could look up instructions to get to an auto shop. And that's the exact conversation I had with the officer, because I said, is there an auto shop or a Walmart that I could go to in order to get things for my car? And he did point me in the direction that I was supposed to go down Main Street.
Do you think that snowy conditions are a reason to not come to a complete stop at a stop sign?
No,
Do you think snowy conditions are a reason for a police officer to not issue a citation?
not necessarily.
What do you mean by not necessarily?
So in my circumstance, I did not violate this traffic code 703. I came to a complete stop and proceeded through the stop sign afterwards. That's when he indicated that he was pulling me over. Only after the fact. So this is the point that I'm concluding. Now, when I say not necessarily, I'm referring to the fact that he may or may not proceed based on his own actions and based on the conditions of the weather. That has no bearing on me. I can't ask him to do one thing or another, but it has very little to do with whether I actually violated the traffic code 703.
Well, you did ask him to excuse the citation, so you can ask him to do one way or another.
I was simply making conversation about the fact that he had decided to pull me over after I had passed through the stop sign.
So you did pass through the stop sign.
Legally, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any further statement?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, please step down. We have no other witnesses, sir, correct?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any rebuttal?
Are we in closing, Your Honor?
You have the opportunity to call a rebuttal witness. That's my question. Now we're in closing.
Your Honor, we heard sworn testimony today from a sworn Frisco police officer that he saw the defendant violate model traffic code 703 subsection 3. The officer Freeman was able to identify the defendant in this courtroom today as the person that he issued a citation to on March 13th, 2023. The defendant was unable to provide any evidence as to why Officer Freeman's testimony was untruthful or whether Officer Freeman himself was untruthful in his testimony. So for that reason, we ask that you find the defendant guilty of the charge. Thank you.
Let me have the pictures. The exhibits.
Oh, yeah. May I approach? Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Saha, please make your closing statement.
Now, as stated previously, there's a discrepancy between the Exhibit 2 photo and the officer's claim of his position in the traffic lane. So I have to dispute that claim. He was in the traffic lane. And I'd like to further mention that I did come to a complete stop prior to the stop sign at the walkway, and then proceeded through the intersection to make a left turn into a parking spot. And this is when I was pulled over for this traffic violation. Given I greatly appreciate all the time and effort from the court, and I thank you for listening to my testimony. So this concludes my side. Thank you, Judge.
Any rebuttal?
You know, I would just say, I think Mr. Saha needed to dispute the location of the vehicle in Exhibit 2 through cross-examination of Officer Freeman or through other testimony on the record. So that would be my only remark.
Okay. The court finds that this falls under Section 703 of the Model Traffic Code as adopted by the town of Frisco and its ordinances, which does require a full and complete stop prior to the stop line, the white painted line on the street by a stop sign. The court finds that it's clear from Exhibit 1 that there is such a painted stop line and appears crosswalk. Court notes that all parties agree there was some weather described either as light snow by the officer or as sleet rain by the defendant. The officer's testimony was clear that he had his patrol car parked where he recreated in the picture in Exhibit 2. The defendant objected to the picture, saying that he was in the travel lane. So he would be facing opposite the defendant as he proceeded down Main Street. And the officer's testimony was clear that he observed the defendant continue past the stop line, continue past the stop sign, and stop in the middle of the intersection. And that his speed estimate was it could be up to 15 miles an hour, the speed at which the defendant went through the intersection. The defendant presents mixed testimony at one point, indicating he was distracted by the officer's presence, making some argument about he was required to pay attention to the officer's car by operation of law, and that distracted him from stopping. And then later testifying that he in fact did stop and then started up again and then stopped again in the middle of the intersection. The court finds that the officer's testimony is more credible in this regard. Court finds that the presence of the patrol car, regardless of where it was, is not a legal excuse for not stopping at the stop sign before the stop line or crosswalk as marked. Court finds it doesn't make sense to say that the officer's patrol car was in the travel lane because that would have involved a U-turn as opposed to turning on lights and pulling the defendant over in the parking area. Therefore, I believe the people have proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did fail to stop at a stop sign, and I will find the defendant guilty of failure to stop at that stop sign. Any remarks from the people about sentence?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Saha, you are entitled to make a statement about what the penalty should be or any other remarks, but you're not required to say anything further. Is there anything you'd like to tell me in addition to what you've already said?
No, I understand that you've come to a decision. I do disagree with how this has been how this testimony has occurred. I made it clear that I came to a complete stop, and once I passed through the stop sign, the officer's lights indicated that I should be pulled over. That was the only reason that I had any hesitation in moving forward into a parking spot. I did not violate the actual traffic code 70.
I understand that was your testimony, but I have concluded that it was not true and accurate.
Yes, Judge.
So
But also, I did clearly state, and this is part of my testimony, that the officer was in the traffic lane, and there was no mistake about that. He could have been any other car turning into this intersection, and this is not consistent with what this exhibit 2 shows. So this actually affects the scenario entirely because he was following along in traffic. So he pulled behind me as another car would have made a left turn at that intersection. And then when he left, he drove back through that same traffic lane on his way. So I feel that although this statement is being discredited, it should be noted that I have not made any inconsistent claims about what occurred that day or how I was in violation of traffic code 73.
and again, I've already commented on the location of the vehicle. All right. Court will impose a $100 fine, $25 surcharge, and $30 court costs for a total of $155. Actually, I'll just make it the same as a correction to the ticket. Let me correct that. $75 fine, $25 surcharge, and $30 court cost for a total of $130. You do have the right to appeal my decision to the District and Appellate Courts of Colorado within 35 days of today's decision by filing the appropriate appeals paperwork with those courts or that court. Also making the required request for transcript, et cetera, required by the Colorado Rules of Appellate Procedure. Anything else for the people?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Saha, anything further? Please see my court clerk to pay your fine. And that, I believe, concludes our docket.
I think so.
Yeah, actually, Janice, I guess you can just take that out of the bond and